I decided I was going to actually write the novel version, and thinking it would be a proper novel of, for me, 200 pages or so. But as I wrote it, a form, that shape over in the corner started growing, and that shape wasn't as large as I envisioned. It was a smaller shape. And it turned out to be much shorter because that felt right. The way I was telling the story was so elliptic that it really needed to be short. It needed to be lean and muscular and just move fast and get to the end of the road and stop. So I wrote the length that felt right, and I'm extremely happy with it.
And strangely enough, somebody wanted to publish it.
And strangely enough, someone did want to publish it.
I never dreamed, when you and I started out, that I would end up as your publisher.
Well, neither of us did.
No, we didn't. But I do think that it's a nice story in the sense that it proves that you can really love a piece that, no one has expectations can become a commercial hit. See, I've always known that one day you would write a commercial success, despite yourself.
By mischance,
Absolutely, by accident. It's not your nature.
We both thought it would be falling screaming off the edge of the world once you published it, but you just don't know. It's been, as you said, an amazing ride. Who would have thought? We've gotten amazing reviews.
Well, I like your New York Times review, the one that started out and said James Sallis has written a perfect noir.
That's pretty good. I couldn't have done much better.
What do you mean, pretty good? I mean, come on, that's the best it can get. It was a short review, which I thought, ironically, although I don't think the Times intended it that way, maybe they did, match the book. It was a review that had just as many words, just as many notes, Mr. Mozart, as it actually needed. Let's see, I can go through some of the kudos that it's gotten, aside from its review in the New York Times and its starred review in many publications, and its great reviews in things like the Boston Globe and the LA Times and the Chicago Tribune and the Denver Post and the Washington Post, which made it a lead. It is a best book of 2005 for the Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune, but the one I think is the most fun, and this is the part that really has just tickled me more than anything else, is that Entertainment Weekly took to it. You rated higher than Harry Potter.
Yes, I did.
And it made its list of the best 10 novels of 19...
And I'm shopping for real estate right now.
It made its list of the best 10 novels for 2005, but I noticed that when they published the review, they grade books, and you were the A. And some other very distinguished writers in that batch they published, were like B-, and here's Drive, the A. So I thought, I would never have guessed that James Sallis and Poison Pen Press together would produce a book that Entertainment Weekly rated #1.
Well, who would have?
I mean, it's just too funny.
It's just part of that surprise I'm always talking about.
It really has been. But I'm really touched by this email that you sent me today, which I'm going to mention, that the Tucson Public Library has named Drive one of the Southwest Books of the Year 2005. And I'm going to read this because I like it. It says, Sallis blows open the doors into the realm of James M. Cain and Raymond Chandler in this stylish noir novel featuring a getaway car driver. Quote, I drive, that's what I do. All I do, who careens between LA and Phoenix. Now, I think that Phoenix is a very big city that has never really developed its own literary, persona. And Drive is really the first, what I would call, noir Phoenix novel. Now, I'm working on John Talton. I figure after we've done so well with Drive, I found my spot here.
You have the shoehorn.
And, well, you know what? It really is interesting because I think that the reaction to Drive not only has been very good for you and your future work with Walker for Cypress Grove on the table here in your April book, Cripple Creek, which I'm very pleased about, which is set in your native Arkansas and has Mr. Turner, whom we talked about earlier. But I think that it has certainly increased the visibility both for you as a writer and for us as a publisher in a way that, is good for both of us, obviously.
Absolutely.
And it gives us a chance now to think about doing some noir from different authors. But the only other Phoenix writers so far who, as I think any real potential for that is John Talton, the columnist for the Arizona Republic, and he's softer, cuter, kind of in his basic idea of writing. So Arizona Dreams, which we're going to publish in September, I'm working more on making it darker. Because I think he actually is, at heart, a noir writer. He has a pretty dark view of Phoenix, as you probably know if you've read any of his columns. He's not enthusiastic about urban sprawl and what he calls the two engines that drive the Phoenix economy, which is real estate and conservative politics, which I'm sure you could agree with. I used to think we were going to lose you to New Orleans because Phoenix is not sort of your natural...
And instead we lost New Orleans.
We did, exactly, which I hope was the message to you. But Phoenix is not really your natural habitat. But in our acquaintance, I know you moved back to New York and discovered that maybe it was at our age a kinder place to live in Phoenix than struggling in New York.
Yeah, I love huge cities, but I'm neither young nor rich enough to live in New York City these days, sadly. I hope to visit it often, and I wish I had a rich uncle who would die and leave me a nice uptown apartment there, but that's not going to happen. We came to Phoenix, we thought very briefly, because my wife grew up in Arizona down in Tucson, and we came to be close to her parents and just for a change. We had had a flood in New Orleans, by the way, which is what prompted us to move. We lost one of the cars and thought, well, maybe this is the time to do it. So we came thinking we'd be here for a year or two, and we've been here, I don't know, 10 or something now. We bought a house here. Karen has a job she absolutely loves. It's very easy to live well here, and I don't make a lot of money, as you know. We make enough to live on, and we can have a really high standard of living here. I can also get anywhere I need to be very, very easily from Phoenix. Now I'm commuting to LA to teach at Otis College, and it's a real easy commute.
Right. Well, it's an easy commute to New York
or anywhere,
whatever it might be. But I'm so pleased that you are, because I think you are such a brilliant writer, that you have written a book that puts Phoenix more on the map in terms of literature.
And I think I will write further, Barbie. It's
good. That was going to be the question.
Yeah, Phoenix is a really difficult city to know because it is so various, and because it has back home, people would take a little trailer, and they would put it on blocks, and they would start building on that trailer. They'd build a porch, and then they'd build another room on the back, and then they would build another room onto that, and you get this ramshackle thing on different levels, and that's kind of Phoenix, Phoenix just kept adding on, and it's still adding on, and it's so different from place to place, and it's so huge that you just really cannot grasp
There's no center.
You can't get the feel of Phoenix. And I avoided writing about Phoenix. I wrote about it in a short story, and then when I was writing Drive, I realized that this is actually the perfect landscape for this person to come from or through, at any rate. And I fully intend, living here, that I will write about it more, but I don't know how. I just know that I will,